Good evening, everybody. It is 4:30, so I shall make a start. Um, First of all, just to remind everybody, apart from my teeth falling out and my new glasses, which means I'm finding it difficult to see anybody or possibly read, I shall struggle on. This is a public meeting, so we're online, as it were, and I noticed that Clive is joining us online as well. Welcome, Clive. I think everyone present in the room is familiar with the fire drill. I'm not aware of any questions from members or the public. I will now commence with the agenda proper, which is with apologies, and I've got apologies from councillors Sharon Butcher and Pat Cumbers, and also from Caroline, our director. Now, minutes, there are two sets of minutes to approve. One of them were a set of exempt minutes. So if you intend members to comment on those minutes, we will have to go into exempt mode. So I'd be grateful if you could just let the officers know that you wish to do that. So without any more further ado, is it are you agreed that they are a correct record? Both sets of minutes? Are proposing that, are you?
I would love to propose it, but I was absent for both those minutes, so I can't really propose because I don't know what actually took place.
So I shall propose that they're a correct record. Are you seconded? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Okay. Any interest to declare? No, no interest to declare. We're now on to matters arising from the Scrutiny Committee, Crime and Disorder. I'll invite Councillor Mike Brown to make any comments he wishes to. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. You were rattling through that so quickly, I hardly had time to get the paper up, but it's just popped up on my screen. The report you have before you from the Scrutiny Committee is from our meeting on the 12th of September, where we were discharging our role as the committee, as the designated Crime and Disorder Committee for Melbourne Borough Council. And this is the annual report we receive every year, with representatives of attending. We had the portfolio holder, Councillor Cox, with us, and we also had Darren from the police, and we received a report excuse me, on the Leicestershire and Rutland Hate Delivery Plan and the Council's domestic abuse policy, and the details of that are set out in the scrutiny comments. And of course, we also had Inspector Darren Richardson available, and he spoke to us and took us through a number of current issues relating to policing in Melton Borough. There are a number of comments and recommendations set out in the bullet points in the scrutiny feedback. I don't propose to go through them all. I'm sure the members of Cabinet have read them. Just a couple of things that I'd like to highlight. And I think it's the two comments about the relatively low rate of burglary in Melton, and then going on to talk about the need to actually report crime appropriately. And whilst Inspector Richardson was very diplomatic, sort of reading between the lines, he was highlighting there's sometimes a disconnect between actual reported crime and the sense of crime that appears on social media and various sites that people obviously take note of, and the importance of actually getting an accurate picture of what the issues are in Melton. There clearly are crimes committed in Melton. There clearly are antisocial behaviour issues in Melton, but we shouldn't be going out of our way to inflate them beyond the reality that actually is reflected in what the police deal with. And as I did the previous year, I finished up with this item on the meeting, pointing out that Melton is a safe place. It has issues. Those issues are being addressed both by our officers in our Safe Communities team and by the local police and other appropriate agencies and other groups that we work with. But we shouldn't paint an over gloomy picture. There's been a lot of success in a whole number of areas in the last 12 months, and we should look forward to that continuing. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Mike. Sarah, did you want to add anything as chair of the Crime and Disorder panel?
I just want to thank Scrutiny for their contributions. It was a really purposeful meeting, actually, with a lot of really valuable contribution from councillors representing both our rural communities and the town area. There was some really good feedback about reporting to the police, and I think Darren's sort of picked up on that. And we, as your representative on the police and crime panel, I have repeatedly fed in the frustrations around 101 and the delays and the online reporting system, and that is something that is replicated by all of the districts across the county. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I notice on the front cover there's a reminder that, of course, the Scrutiny Committee is the Council's designated Crime and Disorder Committee. I think that's sometimes forgotten. So it's an important role that Scrutiny plays in its own right. And I think we should extend our thanks to the police and all those who have been involved in the work on this subject. It's been good. Yes, Margaret.
Yes, just like to add that I met the Police Crime Commissioner last week on other matters, and he was very sort of keen to emphasise that crime should be reported, because without the reporting of the crime, they haven't got true pictures to apply for budgets to get the policing. So it's a knock-on effect, and I think we need to. I know this isn't a high crime area, but if we don't report crime, it looks as if it's lower than what it actually is. So I think the important thing is to report it, no matter however large or small. Okay.
Okay, well, I'll move from the chair that we note the report with thanks to Scrutiny. All those in favour, please show. None against, that's carried. Then to note the paper. Revenue account budget monitoring for April. It's down in my name and Sarah's, and it's a report to note. Does Sarah or Dawn wish to say anything on the paper?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose the recommendation at 2.1, which is that the paper be noted. The report shows that at the end of the second quarter of the year, the HRA revenue position is forecast an overspend of 198,000. The significant variances that make up this position are set out in the report. However, the key element of this overspend is in relation to repairs and maintenance. This relates to incorrect estimations and accruals from prior years for void works. Now, as an administration, we've already challenged that overspend and how we weren't aware of it and why we were not aware of it earlier. The costs related to void properties, which we've pushed for quick repair to ensure that our housing stock is used to the maximum potential. The delay occurred as the contractor submitted multiple invoices, many of which were delayed. The standard estimate cost of the void was superseded by the extent of the work that was required on those properties, and therefore that extra work hadn't been accounted for. I'm satisfied now that the housing team have put in place a new process which more accurately tracks the cost of those void repairs, and schedules of work could be prepared for a void. Therefore, we'd understand and expect those costs going forward. Therefore, the account for these invoices as they're received will more accurately match the estimates, and that if it's accrued, we'll know it for the next year, so we'll be much better prepared. As such, this issue should not arise again. It should be noted that voids are a reactive budget, so we can only base our budget on an estimated number of voids and value for the work. This can fluctuate significantly if the number of voids increase or the value of the work to the void properties is higher than average. And in particular, we've had a number of fire damage properties where the costs are significantly more. Capital spending is performing well with all the schemes on track, with the exception of the affordable housing new build, and this is likely to be carried forward to later years. That's it. Thank you.
Did you wish to add anything? Okay. Margaret, have you got any questions or comments?
No, but thank you for the report. I think it's interesting. Well, I think it's important that we learn from what's happened and we don't carry that forward, because we're striving to get the houses up to a decent standard, and obviously invoices have to come in on time. So it is just one of those learning curves I think we've experienced, because we've gone at it really head on and very enthusiastically. So we've achieved a lot, but we've inherited a situation. But now, hopefully, we're on top of it. Thank you.
Yeah, just to put it in a lot simpler terms, you're quite right, and it's that they had an average cost for a void, but what now will happen is a schedule of works will be conducted at the start, so that there's a full expectation of what the costs will be from the start of the works, and that will mean that the team will be able to monitor the invoices coming in against the work, and that we'll have a better estimation, especially with those really quite severe voids. Some of the voids are very low cost, but we have had a couple that have been quite significant.
So if I can add from my side of the coin, that monitoring will also be monitoring quality of what's happening, because you're seeing what you get for your money as well as how much money you're spending. So that's a good improvement all round, and I think our residents and many members will be pleased to hear that. So thanks to the officers for this work. So I'll formally move that we note the report as we're required to. Have a seconder? All those in
Happy to second.
So we now move on to item 6, General Fund and Special Expenses Budget, which is also to note, it's on pages 39 to 56 of the report. Sarah, over to you again.
Thank you, Jim. I'm pleased to present the report to Cabinet and ask Cabinet to note the year-end forecast, which is highlighted at 2.1. The report shows that at the end of the first quarter, the general expenses are forecast to be overspent by 70,000 and special expenses Melton Mowbray by 31,000. The significant variations are set out in the report. It can be seen that one of the key areas on general expenses is in particular a shortfall in planning income. This has been a risk to us and we have been monitoring it. Further analysis of this has been undertaken in the last few days, and there are some larger applications due in, which it is forecast could enable the income from planning applications to come in on budget, which if all else is as forecast, this report would result in a slight underspend overall. Property repairs and homelessness costs continue to be a concern, however. We have been unaffected last year by the homelessness. We were quite lucky, and Michelle had reported that we were lucky last year. However, that is starting to bite locally, and we've discussed that at length as a Cabinet about potential measures we can take going forward, but that is a threat to us now. A number of these overspends will continue into 25-26, and as such I will remind members of the continued pressures on the Council's finances as we continue to prepare our estimates for 25-26. I've asked for a forecast so that we can see the impact of any proposals for change in establishment or growth proposals, so that we can see the impact that will have on forecasts for 25-26. The financial position on special expenses Melton Mowbray has been a risk last year and continues to be a challenge, with an overspend of 31,000 forecast for the year. The majority of this overspend relates to the decline in income at the cemetery as people choose another way to be buried or depart, or their ashes scattered. A shortfall that is likely to continue into 25-26 and therefore will impact negatively on the budget next year that we need to be aware of. Whilst a relatively moderate amount, the expected overspend on Frisbee closed churchyard will be a challenge for those residents that paid the council tax in that area. As it is due to the low numbers affected, the impact on council tax in later years will be significant, and we are currently awaiting estimates for that work. Capital is largely on track with the exception of the food waste vehicles that are required. That's for a new scheme that members of the public watching this might not be aware of. It is apparent that the government funding, which was intended to fully fund this capital burden, is currently 241,000 short. We are lobbying government to meet the shortfall, but should further funding not be forthcoming, this shortfall would need to be met from the council's own limited capital resources. The impact on the revenue budget has yet to be clarified alongside the level of the new burdens funding representing a risk for future financial sustainability. Thank you.
It's worth adding that last point about the collection of food waste is something that the other 6 boroughs and districts are suffering along with ourselves as we move towards a date. Ed, can you remind me what year are we meant to be doing this by? Is it
April 26th, leader? There's a requirement for weekly food waste collections from all properties.
Yeah, so it's worthwhile highlighting it again. The other side of the coin is not just the cash management side of it, but the actual functionality of the service, which will be a big service to implement and quite a big change for our residents, collecting food waste and us collecting it from them and then it being recycled. Big piece of work going on. It involves the county council as well. Margaret, do you have any questions or comments?
Well, yes, this is something about the sort of BIFA and the food waste, something we've been discussing for quite a long time, as it's part of my portfolio. But it's a common sort of shared problem throughout the rest of the districts. We are not alone in it, and the money just doesn't support or even cover what we're expected to do. So there's going to be an ongoing cost for this. So I apologise those in charge of the purse strings. There's not a lot we can do unless we get more money from government.
I feel another letter going to Angie, my mate Angie, coming up. Right. So I propose from the chair that we note the report as per the recommendation. Have a seconder? Okay, all those in favour, please show. None against. Thank you. That's in the document. This is an item for recommendation to council. So we're agreeing to recommend it to council to note. So over to you again, Sarah, I think. Thank goodness.
Yeah. The Treasury Management Report is one that's always a pleasure to present, actually, even to full council, and that's largely down to the good work of the team. You know, I remind you, this is the one that our team here at NBC outperform all other benchmarking groups in terms of the returns they've obtained for the council. So I'm pleased to propose the report and ask Cabinet to note points 2.1 and 2.2. As set out in the report, further reductions in the base rate are expected, and we've in fact seen that since we wrote these notes, but they're anticipated to go down slower than originally anticipated, but that reduction will reduce the level of return for the council and what it receives on its investments, which have been benefiting both the general fund and the housing revenue account. This will reduce further the level of income available in the next financial year to support the council's finances. And despite the council still outperforming the budget and is still outperforming its benchmarking group, that continues to be a risk for us as we've relied on that income for a while. Other welcome news is that the valuation of the council's property fund has improved further, thereby reducing the notional loss to 203,000. I would remind you all that there is a contingency fund that's been created by the finance team should we ever have to realise that loss, but there is no requirement at the moment for us to realise that loss.
Opposed it. Margaret, do you want to second that, the report?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments to make? Or you? Okay, so I'll ask you to record your vote. Those in favour, please show. None against. That's carried. Thank you, Chief Exec. Yes, I'll repeat that, just by way of preamble. and I will read it out for the benefit of any members of the public who are watching. There is an amendment to the recommendation following discussions between officers and members today. I want to emphasise that this is an important next step in the project that we've been managing for the past 18 months, commencing with the design phase with our architects on the proposed new buildings, followed by the planning application preparation and the planning application, which is currently in, but now stalled slightly delayed because of additional questions from the Highway Authority with the County Council. But this paper tonight puts another brick in the wall, so to speak, no pun intended, insofar as it enables officers to formally appoint the contractors to do the actual work. So it's a very significant step in the Lough project, and it will help to keep us on schedule, other things being equal. And it does reflect recent decisions by the Lough Executive Board, which comprises ourselves and Rutland County Council, and which is fully in liaison with our 2 local MPs and with government. So it's all pretty much online with proper procedure. So the report is self-explanatory. That there are some minor details within it which do not modify the thrust of the report or the recommendations, and the minor typographical errors and other points will be picked up subsequently. So I'm now going to read out, for the benefit of anybody watching, the revised recommendation, which is at 2.1, 2.2 of the report. So 2.1 now reads: Cabinet delegates to the Director for Growth and Regeneration, in consultation with the Leader of the Council and the Director for Corporate Services, to award the Stockyard Development Project, including the Trader Hall event space, main contract works, to GF Tomlinson for a contract sum of no more than £11,197,422.08, with authority to subsequently draw on the contingency construction fund of £228,518, and I think it was originally and 1 pence, but we'll let that go by, as required, and subject to planning permission being obtained. That's very important. It's subject to the planning permission being obtained. And of course, the planning committee still has the right to comment on the plans and to request, perhaps even refuse the plans legally. So we mustn't forget that. And then 2.2 reads, and enters into a JCT design and build 2016 contract with GF Tomlinson as the construction partner for the Stockyard Development Project, subject to the planning permission being obtained. And I say publicly, and for the benefit of the public, that the recommendation around the particular contractor is in accordance with all proper due process and due diligence and examination of alternatives, so that no one has been picked as a friend of the council, so to speak. So I'll formally move the recommendations, but invite comments from members. Thank you.
Yes, I'm quite happy to second this, and I'm glad we've included the Trader Hall event space, because that was an important part of the whole of the building works. So yes, happy to support this.
Sarah, have you got any questions, comments?
No, I'm happy to support it, and I think the works are progressing appropriately. I was glad to see the consultation events that were occurring at the stockyard for local traders to be involved in the process as well. That was really positively received.
The author of the report, the written report, is Philip Norwell, who's our contracted capital project manager. And I'd like to extend my thanks to him and to Lee Byrne and to all the other officers involved in bringing this report to us. It's not an easy task, this, particularly when you've got members breathing down your neck all the time asking for changes or asking difficult questions. But it's a tough one, but we are getting there, and I'm quite confident that providing our partners play their part, we will be there on time. So I put that to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendations, please show. That's carried. NEMCON, thank you very much. Right, so we're now on to number 9, fees and charges. I've got an amendment. Oh, there we go. Right. So this is our routine, I emphasise that, routine review of the full gamut of fees and charges across the piece, which we're obliged to do. And as usual, we're trying to restrict that to no more than inflation rates and to reflect our ability to fund those services without recourse to the subsidy from the taxpayer. Which is not always easy. So I call upon Sarah as the portfolio holder to make any comments she wishes to. Thank you.
Thank you. The amendment to any fees and charges this Cabinet fully appreciates is a challenge that our community face with the current cost of living situation, and that many families see any increase as a depletion in their living standard. So we have carefully considered the proposed fees and charges. I will come on to talk about car parking later because there's been extensive consultation, cross-party, inclusive of members of the public, including councillors actually going out on foot and speaking to members of the public in the car parks about the services that are offered there. But this council has an ambitious plan around car parking, and we want the quality of our car parks and the services that we can offer to be improved. And therefore, you know, I'll come on to talk about the increase in those charges in a moment. As the council starts to its budget setting for the next financial year, a key part of the process is to review and set the fees and charges for the coming year. The review has been undertaken and has been in accordance with the council's corporate charging policy, which is as a starting principle that charges are increased in line with inflation in order to ensure charges are aligned with full cost recovery as much as possible. Where charges do not cover the cost of service delivery, the shortfall will fall to the general taxpayer to meet. The various schedules setting out the proposed fees and the current fees are attached in the appendix. Some of the key changes are set out in more detail in the report. In relation to one of the recommendations within the report, there is an amendment, and that relates to recommendation 2.1. And that's that Cabinet are asked to approve the proposed fees and charges for 25-26 as outlined in the attached appendices A to E, with the exception of those relating to catering at Gretton Court, which are delegated to the Director for Housing and Communities in consultation with the Director for Corporate Services and Portfolio Holder for Housing, Leisure and Landlord Services. I think we'll come on to discuss that, but Cabinet are minded to cap the increase at Gretton Court of the midday meals to a rise of 10% for 25-26 and to remodel the cost provided to non-tenants and lunch clubs. We felt that was a more appropriate share of the costings. This is aimed to support the most vulnerable tenants we have in our community with the cost pressures that they are facing. This modelling and implications arising will be managed under the delegation, as I've just proposed in that amended recommendation. That's the first proposal. And then just to cover some of the proposals around car parking. In the extensive consultation, one of the things that was highlighted to us was the value of the free spaces that we currently have in our car park, and therefore we are proposing within the paper that we increase the number of free spaces from 7 to 9, and that the timing will be changed of those spaces from 20 minutes to 30 minutes. We felt this would give the community longer to actually go into town and purchase items they need to. There was consultation about the free car parking Fridays that occurred up to Christmas, and following extensive comments last year over social media about those that work during the week and commute to work. There was representation from the community that they felt Saturday would be valuable, and therefore we have amended or proposed an amendment that we have 2 free Fridays and 2 free Saturdays, thereby trying to boost trade in the town in the 2 weekends before Christmas and encourage our community to use local shops for the last minute shopping. We've capped the weekly charge for workers in our long stay car park, and that was following consultation with people who travel to our community but work here and provide vital essential services in the town. And we felt that the weekly, especially low income weekly workers in our town, needed to be supported. We have offered to the bid a discounted low paid parking scheme, that if the bid administer it, there will be a number of spaces offered in the Sculford Road car park at very low cost for low income workers in the town, and we're in consultation with the bid about how that will be administered going forward. The car parking fees are increasing by 2/3 of what was proposed. Having not had an increase in 4 years, Cabinet 5 years, 5 years, we recognised that to bring that up to the rate of inflation would have been significant, and we felt that was too much for our community to cope with. And also we want to support the local businesses we have in town, and therefore we are proposing an increase of only 2/3 of what was actually proposed. Thank you.
I think it's worth adding that we are not putting charges on our existing free car parks, which includes the free car park in Asfordby, which some people thought last year that was the policy, but it isn't of this administration. So we are, in my words, we are protecting those, we're improving our existing ones, and we are supporting low paid workers and businesses in the town. So I'm very pleased that we've settled on a balanced and fair increase for car parking charges, which reflect our necessity legally to cover the costs of administering those car parks, and provide a little bit of surplus to actually improve the quality of those car parks. So that's good. I want to emphasize that we've thought long and hard about increasing food charges at Gretton Court, which is why we've to some extent paused that deliberation to allow for a bit more thought, bearing in mind that none of these charges will be going up until April. So we've got time to do that. And I hope that members will understand that. Right. You've read out the amended version of the recommendation. Margaret, did you want to say anything else?
Thank you. Yes, I'm quite pleased that we're with the outcome for Gretton Court. We've had a lot of discussion over this, and I think the proposal on the table at the moment is a very balanced approach. Regarding car parks, this is taking forever to get to this point. It's been a lot of consideration, a lot of consultation, people going out in the car parks, members going out in the car parks, speaking to members of the public. What's your view, etc. And I think one of the important things to note is, unlike other districts, we're not charging for Sundays. It still remains free. And also we've increased the number of free car parking spaces and increased the time, in actual fact, up to 30 minutes. It gives a bit more time to get to the bank and get back to your car. So I think this is a really good sort of outcome after a lot of discussion, and I'm quite happy to just. Are you going to second? Or I'm I'm quite happy to second the motion to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Glantz, you're quite right about the Sunday. We did consider charging on Sunday because we have some really successful events on the Sunday that would have been an income generator. But at the same time, we did not want to dissuade people from coming to our town and from people within the whole community coming in to celebrate and enjoy those activities. So that representation was made very clear to us, as was the consideration of charging in the evening. So unlike many surrounding districts that have increased their charges to 24 hours, we've resisted that move, noting that we want to support our hospitality industry locally, and that we all felt that if we were to charge in the evening, that might have a detrimental effect on restaurants, hospitality and the theatre, and therefore that has not been increased. We've not introduced a fee for that. Thank you.
Of course, there's are authorities in this country who are now charging disabled drivers for their parking. So I think we are a model of balanced increases, if you like. We're not going mad. We're trying to hold the line and keep it in an area where our residents can feel comfortable that they're not being ripped off, but they are going to get value for money. So, go on.
Back on that, yes, as I said, this is a very balanced approach. There was no way we could have not raised the prices of car parking. It was the fact that it'd be 5 years in total by the time these come in for any car park price raises, but we're not charging for evening as in some authorities are. We're not charging for Sundays as some authorities are, and I think this is the best that we can actually provide for residents and visitors to the town, and also to keep the evening alive as well, so we're not actually curtailing what's happening because of car parking.
Carried. Then Con, thank you very much. So we now move on to item 10, which is the acquisition of affordable homes. To here, I noticed that you're here, no pun intended. We have read the report. I don't think we've got any questions. It's another piece of good news, really, that we're getting on with the job and we're seeing that we are spending the money that we can spend on new homes for people. Michelle, did you want to add anything?
I wanted to say that it's a really positive move forward to obviously increase the availability of affordable homes within the borough. A lot of work's been done in the background, working with developers, moving forward stalled sites, looking at options to make sure that we make the best use of money. So looking at different types of properties, different ages of properties, and we're really confident that what's being presented is the best value for money and the most deliverable. I'm really positive to move forward. Also means that in meeting that requirement to spend that money, we won't be subject to any penalties and having to return any money to government. So really positive. Thank you.
Which is to approve and note. So those in favour? Oh, sorry, have I got a seconder? Oh, good. Those in favour, please show. None against. That's passed. NEMCON. Productivity plan, and the chair wishes to recognise the chairman of the planning committee, who's here as an observer, but I will invite him to make any comments he wishes to. So if you want to move into the front chair, Alan, you're very welcome to. And I'll invite Councillor Glancy to present the report initially. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you may see on your table that the recommendations have altered slightly. So for the benefit of those watching this evening, I'll read them out. 2.1 is recognises the importance of the service to the council and residents of the borough and the significant demand and pressure on the service at present. 2.2, which is one that has changed, notes the paper and the need for improvements in the planning process and approves the establishment of a planning productivity plan with a project oversight board established to include the relevant portfolio holder and chair of the planning committee to maintain effective oversight on progress. The terms of reference of this will be agreed with the leader and aforementioned members. 2.3 is to note and any proposed changes to procedure rules arising from Workstream 6 would follow the normal process for constitutional changes. And 2.4 delegates authority to the Interim Director for Growth and Regeneration in consultation with the Director for Corporate Services to approve a supplementary estimate of up to £150,000 to the Growth and Regeneration budget from the Regeneration and Innovation Reserve. I'm just going to.
Alan, are you cited on that?
No.
Want a copy?
Yeah.
You sure? I've got some more. Some more. Yeah. Okay. Right, this is a programme of work which at the moment includes 6 draft work streams as detailed in the report. This is not a quick fix. There'll be various components to this particular project. How do we deal with applications and streamline the planning process? Do you realise that often a huge amount of work by officers goes into an application before it reaches an appropriate standard to enable validation? You will see from the papers at 5.8.1 onwards, various work streams of the project have at the moment been identified. This list may very well change with time. A joint officer member project oversight board will be created. The recommendation is to approve the establishment of a planning productivity plan with the project oversight board established to include the portfolio holder and chair of planning to maintain effective oversight on progress. The terms of reference of the board is to be agreed with the leader and the aforementioned members. In the past, we have invested in additional and interim planning officers to help deal with staff vacancies and the backlog of applications. We also receive funding from the Planning Skills Delivery Fund. We're now at a point where we need to do more to alleviate the pressure on the planning department. We need to invest in technology, evaluate the skills, strengths, and potential and possible weaknesses of our planning team and the planning committee, and enable training. We need to review how we process applications. These are just a few of the items we need to address. To do this will be costly, hence why it is requested that up to an amount of 150,000 be included in the Growth and Regeneration budget from the Regeneration Innovation Reserve to deliver the project. This is a huge commitment by this Cabinet and the project must be successful. As you will see, the recommendations have been altered and I'm happy to propose we note where necessary and approve where indicated in the recommendations 2.1 to 2.4.
I'm happy to second that formally and add to a couple of comments. The money that's been drawn down from the reserve will, of course, not just be for the current year, but can be used in the coming financial year. So it's not locked into a particular period of time. There are some elements in the paper which are, let's put it blunt, are a little bit controversial. Some I's to be dotted, some T's to be crossed, but that can be done once the board is up and running, and once the discussion about the terms of reference gets underway. I think the devil is in the detail. The other thing I wanted to say is, obviously in the paper there are some references to what I would describe as constitutional changes, composition of committee and role of members. That will have to follow the normal route to full council for any modifications via the Constitutional Working Group. This is just current practice. There's nothing peculiar about that. But I think the whole thrust of the paper is to be realistic about how we can improve the productivity of the council, it's not just the officers, let's say it's the council, in receiving and processing planning applications and doing our job to support and implement the local plan in order that people can have homes to live in and workspaces that provide jobs. So it's not an insignificant matter. It's not something that we're just fiddling with at the side to make ourselves look better or to have more efficiency, but it's a real big piece of work to do, and I'm very pleased that members have stepped up to the plate on this, even if they're giving me headaches occasionally with their different opinions. But that's what we're here for. Elected members are here to give opinions and to debate different aspects of it, and I've got every confidence that the board will be a success, and that working with officers we're going to get really big improvements and take this council forward. It's been in the doldrums a bit, despite all the good efforts of officers over the past 2 or 3 years. But now we've got to step up a gear. Now I'm going to invite Councillor Alan Thwaites to make any comments he wishes to, or ask any questions.
No, I just want to add my thanks as well for bringing the project forward, and for all the work from the officers and the cabinet to actually bring this important project forward for something which is a very public facing and public serving function of the borough council. So I want to thank you for taking this as seriously as you are doing. And just to say that the amount of work in this is not any reflection on any of the people in the planning department at this moment in time. They're doing a fantastic job in a very difficult circumstance, and this is a way to get us out of the position we're in at the moment, and to move ourselves forward and to be an exemplar rather than a group that's falling backwards at this moment in time. So again, thank you to the cabinet, and thank you for all the amendments that I've requested within this paper, and so thank you, and I fully agree with it. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Alan, for the approach you've taken to it, proactive and positive. It's been a pleasure to work with you on this. Sarah, did you wish to ask any questions or make any comments?
No, planning is one thing I'm not involved in, but the only comment I would like to make is that seeing the working group and coming together in terms of recommendations shows the inclusive approach we've tried to take as a cabinet, involving all members to contribute to the work that's required to make it better for our community. And I think this paper reflects that joint collaboration.
You're the portfolio holder, aren't you? Right, okay. So I shall second that. All those in favour, please show. Any against? Good. Biodiversity, and that's your paper then, Margaret.
Yeah, me again. Thank you. Right, biodiversity duty first consideration. As you will see from the report, like other local authorities, this requirement was overlooked, unfortunately. But now we have a draft first consideration at Appendix 1. The document has been drafted based on the approach of other local authorities and input from key teams across the council to document relevant initiatives, strategies and policies already in place. We acknowledge that biodiversity is a corporate responsibility. I would like to add that we have not ignored the need to enhance and protect biodiversity in this authority. It is very prominent in our local plan. Our climate change strategy supports tackling climate change alongside protecting and enhancing the rural environment, natural environment. Also, in collaboration with ourselves, Leicestershire County Council is producing a local nature recovery strategy for Leicestershire, Leicester and Rutland, as you will see in the draft first consideration report. This is not just about our own parks and gardens. It is about ensuring there is a careful planning of our new developments to ensure they provide habitat creation and protect and enhance biodiversity, ecological networks throughout the borough. We have a policy to provide a strategic approach to the delivery, protection and enhancement of green infrastructure within the borough, and we need to ensure this is applied to all developments, plus ensuring the enhancements remain in place. I would like to make one small amendment to the first consideration report on page 153, which refers to environment services. The actual quote says, when a council-owned tree becomes dead, diseased or dangerous, we may have to fell the tree. Well, I would like to have in there, where possible, we will plant another tree and try to leave the dead wood safely in place in wooded areas to provide an additional habitat. I think at the moment it's a little bit lacking. It says we're just going to clear it away and leave the dead wood, but not actually plant a new tree in its place or somewhere near. So I'm quite happy to present the report to Cabinet and ask that you note the content of the report and approve the first consideration report in Appendix 1 to include the minor amendment I've mentioned.
Happy to second that formally. Do the officers have your wording for the amendment, or? Okay, so if we take it as read with that small amendment. Any comments, Sarah? Any other members wish to comment?
I think as a Cabinet we've highlighted the importance of local green space, and I'm sure Councillor Cumbers will be very disappointed she wasn't here this evening because she's been leading on preservation, certainly in some of the areas on our ward. It's good to see the plan and I totally agree with the contents. Yeah.
That's the vote then. All those in favour? Any against? No, that's passed unanimously. Before closing the meeting, can I emphasise thanks to all the officers whose names I haven't mentioned while we've been. There's an array of officers in the reports and also online looking down on us. So very augustly. So thank you all very much for your attendance this evening. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.